Welcome to Rico 12. I'm Justin B., your host and a child of an all-powerful and perfectly loving God and an addict living in the miracle of recovery one day at a time. Rico 12 is an open to all addictions and afflictions organization dedicated to exploring the common threads of the differing manifestations of alcoholism, sharing tools and offering hope from those walking a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and locations to learn and support one another. Our speakers come from various fellowships and experiences, demonstrating the universal principles of recovery. Rico 12 is not allied with any or affiliated with any specific 12-step fellowship. This is Rico 12 speaker meeting number 347. Thank you for joining us live or on the recording later. Today's speaker is Asher G. He is a first-time guest speaker on Rico 12, and I am super grateful to hear from him today. He'll be speaking today on the topic entitled, What Does It Mean for us all to be addicts? And I look forward to hearing more about his message here in a few minutes. But first, a few quick announcements. Rico 12 does offer a variety of recovery resources, including podcasts and social media communities. To explore more, go ahead and visit us at www.rico12.com. That's RECO12.com. Or check the chat and show notes for links. I'll be putting those in throughout the meeting or in the show notes of the podcast. Rico 12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue this mission. Thank you to all our Spearhead donors, past and present, especially this week to an anonymous donor and to Bob and Sharon. Your support truly makes a difference. If you'd also like to contribute, visit rico12.com/support or check the links that I'll put in the chat or in the show notes of the podcast for one-time or monthly donation options. Every bit of support, whether it be financial or through word of mouth, helps us share these messages of recovery. Each week we receive light, it's easy for you to say, and inspiration from our speakers. Their experience brings hope, meaning, worth, and growth to us as listeners. Now let's welcome today's speaker, Asher G., and here's a little bit about him. Asher is a spiritual entrepreneur, human connection coach, and rabbi in Southern California. His story began at home as a young child where all seemed well from the outside. As the youngest, by 9 years, he felt a horrible sense of abandonment. His loneliness was compounded by his father's prominence as a rabbi and community leader, where the pressure to appear as role models was insufferable. This resulted in a childhood eating disorder and drug use by age 14. Asher was 33 when he lost his multi-million-dollar business, with the resulting bankruptcy destroying what little self-worth he had as a provider to his family. He had hit rock bottom. Asher found his road to recovery through the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, where, despite the circle of anonymous faces, it was truly the first time in his life he felt the power of shared human connection through service to others and self. The experience marked the debut of an odyssey of self-discovery, trading ego for vulnerability and leaving the pursuit of pleasure for the pursuit of meaning. Asher decidedly dedicated the rest of his career to helping others help themselves restore wholeness in their lives. Armed with a renewed sense of self, profound life experience, and entrepreneurial passion, Asher founded Transcend in 2008, building an internationally recognized recovery community. Now sober 17 years and counting, Asher has counseled hundreds of men and women and built a renowned reputation where he is recognized by his 3 hallmark pillars of recovery, accountability, community, and unconditional love. So, take it away, Asher. The floor is yours.
Sounds like an obituary. Asher, alcoholic, and other addicts. I like that this is a non-denominational 12-step fellowship, so I guess I can share about powdered alcohol too. So, and eating, etc. I like to open up my story with saying I grew up like everybody else in this room, the son of an Orthodox rabbi, and that didn't make me an alcoholic. And I will get to your question and the topic of us all being addicts in some form, and I can actually even begin with that. And as an addict with ADHD, I'll probably jump around quite a bit. Yet, I found, at least in my trajectory, starting at about 8 years old, where I self-soothed. I probably self-soothed earlier. I was actually lying. I told people I was in the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark without seeing the movie and not knowing any of the characters. So it's probably not a great lie to. I probably should have prepared for my lies a little bit better. the better lie that I did do is there's something called kosher, and in our day school you had to keep kosher, and if you brought non-kosher food, which we don't have to, ChatGPT will tell you what kosher is. If you brought non-kosher food into the school as the son of the rabbi of the school, I would tell people, if you give me a piece, I will certify it kosher. So that was my first act as a rabbi as a child. But drugs and alcohol were my solution. They weren't my problem at all. And they were my short-term solution to a long-term problem, which I eventually identified and understood as abandonment. And my underlying theory that I had as a young child was, if you really knew me, you couldn't love me. And I didn't understand where it came from for so many years. I had a really nice childhood. I had two parents together. I had a nice community. I had a beautiful home. I wasn't violent. There was no violence in my home. I wasn't abused. And for so many years, I would say to myself, if only I was abused, if only I suffered in terrible ways, then I would have understood why I feel this way. And which is probably one of the most important things I can share in a room, because we so often compare our pain to other people's pain and don't allow us to justify our pain. Well, our pain is our pain, and we feel it the most, no matter what happened to us. And it doesn't make us bad because we're in pain and because we're suffering. And it doesn't make us bad because we found a medicine called alcohol, drugs, food, gambling, whatever it may be that brought us to these rooms. Yet abandonment was a serious issue for me. My sister actually, when who was my mommy, because everybody else had a mommy, I had an ima, which is Hebrew for mommy, and I wanted a mommy too. It was kind of interesting in those days when she was 15 and 16, and I was walking around when 15 and 16-year-olds, I guess, in the poor parts of Beverly Hills weren't having children at the time. So let's, to skip forward, it started out with food, just to self-soothe. Then after food, I was told that for my bar mitzvah, if I lost a bunch of weight, I'd get a nice suit. That was the bribery. So like a great addict, I went on a puffed rice and Diet Coke diet at 13 and lost 36 and a half pounds at 5 feet tall in 6 weeks. So I do, if I'm as a great addict, if one is too many, a million's not enough. And it's either 0 or 1,000. So that is my story. I was never a daily user. That's not true. I was a daily user of something, but I was never a daily user of substances or alcohol. I was a binger in every area, and one was too many, and a million wasn't enough. And that's another important piece, because so many people said, you weren't a real addict. I said, well, I'd rather pretend I am than find out I really am. So the outside world really doesn't get how great we have it. And 33 years old, from 30 to 33 years old, I made a fortune. I did extremely well. And then from 25 to 30 years old, made a fortune. And then from 30 to 33, I went really upside down. And I remember coming into one of my earlier meetings when I was seeking the differences, not the similarities. And somebody was sharing about their $400 bill that they can't pay. And I'm like, I'm facing an $18 million judgment. Go F yourself. And when we start to look at the similarities and not the differences, that $400 to that gentleman could have been as great as $18 million to me. It could have been greater, right? And that's where as the son of a rabbi and appreciating the religion, I had to have a new conception of God. When I got into the rooms, I received that. But the first time I ever felt and saw true spirituality, I believe, is in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the reason for that is it was the first time that nobody cared what my last name was, what I did for a living, how much money I had, who I am, what religion I am. And you have a $20 million movie actor, a CEO, a homeless person, a rabbi, a priest, and an imam. I don't know, it's all sitting next to each other. And for one single purpose, how do we get better? Right? How do we understand this ailment? And then we turn it over to a power greater than ourselves. How cool is that? And how lucky are we? And the miracle is look at how it was created. I mean, a couple of drunks, right, wanted to save their own lives, and boom, millions and trillions. And I think that's the ultimate message of Alcoholics Anonymous to ourselves is no matter how far down you have gone, we have the ability to give back and to grow from there. A shame has no place in our lives. I don't find shame to be beneficial at all. I may have to ask my higher power why it existed. Yet shame is I'm effed up. And just I didn't ask you if I can curse on here, so I'm just gonna pretend curse. So as opposed to I effed up, right? And that's a really important thing, because if I'm effed up, I continuously will need that medication. If I effed up, I can clean my side of the street. And the only thing I personally found that really helped me to overcome that pit in my stomach, other than alcohol and drugs, which only was a really, really short-term temporary solution. It felt good for a few minutes and then felt shitty for a long, long time. What is and was being of service. And I believe that's the only form of unconditional love in the world. It's I get as much as you get when I'm of service to you without any expectation of return. When I help another human being, or I'm just being let's not even use the word help. When I'm present for another human being without any expectation in return, and listening, paying attention, not responding, not giving advice, there's no greater form of love, right? I'm showing up for them, and I'm showing up for myself. And the good news is I'm no longer thinking about myself. I remember one of the great shares in Alcoholics Anonymous was somebody said, how do I look? What's going on? They're all going to judge me. And somebody says, you're just about to walk into a room with the most selfish, self-centered people in the world. Nobody's looking at you and nobody's paying attention. They're all thinking about themselves. So, right. So the bottom line is, and that was another great advice I got from my sponsor in the beginning. And he said to me, don't ever have a conversation, at least in your first couple of years of sobriety, with somebody who's not in the room, because that head of yours is a really bad place. And the way we speak to ourselves, we wouldn't let our worst anybody speak to us that way. And we're the only population, right, that punches ourselves in the face because we were punched in the face, right? Let's destroy our lives because somebody else destroyed our lives. And so to take a step back, when I was first sent to, when I didn't even know I wanted to get sober. And when my life was falling apart, I went to therapy. And unbeknownst to me, my therapist had 20 some odd years sober. And he had said to me, your hardware is fine, your software is severely effed up. You want to do something about it? And I said, sure. And he said, well, you have a cocaine problem. I go, no, I don't. I just stopped. And then he goes, you have an alcohol problem. I go, yeah, I do. And I ain't stopping that. And there were some pills along with that, and some women along with that, and some wonderful other stuff along with that. And he sent me to an AA meeting. And I came back to him and I said, not only did I lose my money and I lost my dignity, you're going to compare me to a junkie on the street? Now, I went to what we'd call a low bottom meeting. And then I said, but 12 steps versus 613 commandments, I think I'll take 12 steps any day. So I actually started going to Overeaters Anonymous. And then on March 18th, 2008, I realized I want to die. I feel I have all the same similar feelings, and alcohol's really my problem. And I went back to that same low bottom meeting, and somebody had shared about being homeless. And I remember it was an incredible share. He was homeless and he was at McDonald's panhandling, and a lady brought out fries. Okay, at least I'm going to get fed. And instead of feeding him, she fed the birds. And that was his moment, his rock bottom, where he decided to go get help and get off his addiction. And all I heard was hope at that moment. I heard the similarities, not the differences. And that, again, and that was another, the luck of spirituality. And I got a sponsor the next morning, and been blessed to have been sober ever since. And that, and hence comes this idea that we're all addicts in some way. We all have maladaptive behaviors. We all have things. So don't be shameful or feel badly that you're an alcoholic. You're lucky. We have these 12-step rooms. How about the people that don't identify, that are suffering all day, whether it's working, whether it's being on their hamster wheel, whether it's being on their merry-go-round, and don't have any solution, right? We get to get into these rooms. We get to share our stories. We get to share what we're truly vulnerable about, and get to see somebody else that's going through literally the exact same thing if we pay attention, right? Yeah, we can. I promise you, you can dissect and say how everybody is different than I am. And then you can actually find how everybody is similar to you too. That's your choice and your perspective, and how you look at it. And the second you're saying, if only you understood me, know that you are going down the wrong path. And the process really, truly saved my life. It continues to save my life, in the sense that it lets me know that I am lovable just because I am, right? I have a higher power that loves me no matter what. I had to truly create a new conception of it. It went from this mean, a Monty Hall type character of let's make a deal. Anybody who doesn't have any white in their beard has no idea what Monty Hall is. So great. I think now I was Howie Mandel who did did make a deal or something like that, but it doesn't make a difference. And punishing God, to a God that loves me more than anything in the entire world, a love I can't even comprehend, and sometimes allows me to find out on my own what I need to get to. And if I pay attention and I stay on the path, I hopefully won't have to suffer as much as I did. Yet if I don't and I stray, I got to get back on the path in some way. And sometimes getting back on the path is really, really, really freaking painful. And it's not God harming you or doing to you poorly. I can't, and I don't want to go into the whys of terrible things happen to people, because terrible things happen to people, and terrible things are happening in the world. Evil does exist in this world today. Yet we have a solution. We have a solution. It's called perspective. And we get that perspective because we get into these rooms. And the truth is, while we have a choice is how we respond. Are we going to react? Or are we going to respond? Are we going to pause? Are we going to be of service? Are we going to say, regardless of what you think about me, I'm going to give to you, and stop thinking about me? Am I going to be of service? Am I going to clean up my side of the street? Right? How cool would it be if everybody observed the 12 steps? I think we probably have a really, really cool freaking world, right? And the fact that this is, and that's, that's why I say everybody's an addict. There was a rabbi, his name was Rabbi Dr. Abraham Twersky, and he said there are two types of people in the world: those that are in 12-step programs and those that can be, right? Because I've never met a person that hasn't benefited from it. Yeah, maybe you found out you weren't an alcoholic later and you don't have to abstain, whatever. But did you get hurt because you did an inventory on your life? Did you get hurt because you made an amends? Did you get hurt because you were of service to others? Did you get hurt because you spent some time, right, being present with others? You showed up to a meeting. I don't think anybody ever got hurt for doing anything like that. And the gift that Alcoholics Anonymous gave me is it helped me to stop thinking of me. It helped me to stop thinking of me in a negative light. And it helped me to do esteemable acts and therefore builds real, true self-esteem. And deal with that pit in my stomach that only could get filled spiritually. I mean, and no amount of cocaine, no amount of alcohol, no amount of pills could ever fill, or women or food could ever fill that hole. And the only thing that I found that filled that hole is spirituality. And hence, I hope everybody else, and again, just to share again, my definition of spirituality is being there for some other person in some capacity without any expectation of return. I'm Asher. I'm an alcoholic.
Thank you so much, Asher. I really enjoyed your share, and I've got several questions that I wrote down here. I want to remind our live audience, if you have a question for Asher, type it in the chat. If you want to remain anonymous, not have me read your first name, please indicate that. But if you're okay with me reading your first name and want to ask the question, just don't indicate anything, and I will do that. But I'd like to start off with a question that I have for you, Asher. You said, I'd rather pretend that I'm an addict or an alcoholic than realize later that I really am one. Talk to me a little bit about that. I loved that. I've never heard it put quite that way. Tell me your perspective on that and how that attitude or perspective has helped you in your life.
So again, we thank you for the question. We get sober and it was bad, right? And then thank God or thank higher power, whatever you want to call it, it gets better and it gets good. And we begin to forget, or other people say, you weren't as bad as you said you were, right? And in my case, I wasn't a daily user, you're a binger, right? So the noise in the head starts to say, well, you can have a drink. You could do this. So the way I quiet that is, let's pretend you really are, and therefore you can't have a drink. Even if your mind is telling you you're not, even if your best friend is telling you you're not, your spouse is telling you you're not, your family members are telling you you're not, how is it going to hurt you, okay, to stay sober? And how is it going to harm you if you find out you really are? Right? Let's just ask that question. Don't label yourself. Fine, you're not an addict. You're not an alcoholic, okay? Whatever you are. But what are you doing? And if you're having that discussion, maybe that's telling you something. And that's why I say I'd rather pretend I really am than find out I really am. So I actually do believe I really am. And yet I don't need to convince you, and I don't even need to convince me. I just need to live it. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and I love the way you walked through that. That's beautiful. All right, I have an anonymous question come in from our live audience. The question is, Asher, how do you grow your connection directly with God, with your higher power? What's your everyday practice for that?
It's a great question. So I mean, I have a prayer practice every single day that I do. I have a meditation practice. And the other thing is I have conversations with my higher power all the time. While driving, while sometimes in the bathroom, in my bed. And the cool thing is I can be angry. I can curse at my higher power. I can cry to my higher power. I can laugh with my higher power. My higher power is really cool. I could do anything with that higher power. And that ends up getting me a greater connection. So if you're not feeling a connection, yell, scream, curse. Don't worry about it. Your higher power can handle it. Just have a connection, anything. And that's how I build it. Now, the way I act on it is by emulating this higher power in the world. And how do you emulate this higher power in the world? Is by being of service, by being kind, by being forgiving. And the truth is, when I'm forgiving, I'm really helping myself because I don't have that 1,000,000-pound weight on my back, right? So, and if I believe that this is how my higher power behaves, the greatest form of connection I can give to that higher power is to behave that way.
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M. and me, Justin B., on Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M., streaming now on your favorite podcast platform. Yeah, thank you. On that note, one of the questions I wrote down, you talked about initially maybe you believed that your higher power, God, was this punishing God, and it transitioned to a loving God. What did that process look like? How did that go step by step?
So for me, I had to throw it all out. I really had to start from scratch. And it had to start with me. And I had to start with believing I can even like me, and like parts of me. And then after I started having a relationship with me, then I was able to start having a reconception and move away from shame, right? That first God was shaming. And shaming only, I've never seen a benefit. I mean it. It only keeps us in our cycle. Maybe it benefits others. I just haven't met, I have yet to meet someone who suffers that it's benefited. Okay. I've yet. And I think pretty much everybody in the world suffers, but I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You want to keep your shame, I'll refund it to you. Yet the bottom line is that's that God. That God is the shame God, is the thing, and that God keeps me in my cycle because I definitely need to be medicated to deal with that. So I had to say, is that really, if the idea for me is to be on the right path, on a healthy path, to have redemption available to me for the rest of my life, can it be that there's this God that wants me to stick in shame? Can it be? And at first it was just, can it be? And then from can it be, it went to nah, it can't be. And nah, it can't be. Okay, well, then what is it? And I was like, cool, I got to make it up now. And grateful it ain't me.
Yeah, me too. I'm grateful it's not you or me. My story with the God of my understanding, I think, was fairly similar. Previously it was this shaming, punishing, angry, whatever God, and I, like you, had to. And I say I fired God. I fired God's butt, and had to figure out what God really is to me. And you came from what I assume it sounds like a pretty similar background, a very religious household and everything like that. When you made that decision, I got to start from scratch. Was there fear? Was there anything that was going on with that in your own life and in your own mind?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Again, the concept of hell was real growing up. So if I didn't behave, I'm going to hell. And by the time I got in the rooms, I probably would have been in hell for eternity. So from all my misbehaviors. So now the good news is I did grow up with this concept of cleaning up your side of the street. So I'm grateful for that. There was no such thing as you're damned to eternity, pretty much no matter what, as long as you can clean it up. Unfortunately, there's some behaviors you may not be able to clean it up. And for those, we say live amends. But yeah, super scary, man. It's changing in any way, shape, or form is really scary because where's my identity? Who am I? Right? So and even if it's good for us, and that's why, right, we stay in relationships that are terrible. We do things that are terrible to ourselves because it's familiar.
Very good. Got another anonymous question here from our live audience. This person says, shame, God, is a great word for it. I find it in the program and have to separate myself from from shame, because God is love. How can we change others who combat this perception of a shame God in a loving and compassionate way? How have you found to help others go through those same steps in a loving and compassionate way, Asher?
So if somebody's a parent, it's typically much easier. What I try to, or if they're not a parent, I try to say, why don't you um, look at your little self, right? Why don't, as your big self, look at your little self, and why don't you ask your little self? Sorry, not ask your little self. Would you speak to your little self in that shaming way? Would you tell your little self that you're a piece of crap, that you're effed up, that you're a horrible human being? Right? Would you? Never. So if you wouldn't tell that to your little self, are you telling me that this God that makes all the beauty in the world, that's what that God wants from you? It can't be. It just can't be that God would want us to feel that badly about ourselves if God created us. And as the Bible says, we're created in the image of God. So now we are God. So we got to be beautiful in some way. So that contradicts the shame. And I would walk through those steps. But I'd first say, how would you, is it okay to speak to yourself and call yourself those names? Most people would agree that it's not.
Thank you. All right. Got another question from our live audience, another anonymous question. And this person asks, when the alcoholism was solved, was the food also solved? You talked about you first went into the rooms of OA and then you realized alcohol's my problem. As those things have been solved, how has that worked out for you?
So again, food has definitely been a greater challenge because I can't go to no food. But what I did use from my 12 step is the same way I had to be abstinent from alcohol. There were certain foods that were trigger foods that I haven't been great at, and I have not had continuous sobriety. Let's call it that. But I've recognized that when I abstain from them, it really helps me. So it helped with the underlying feelings. It didn't always help. I have not been cured, as they'll call it, of the actions. Yet I have found that people with long-term sobriety in OA will find foods in their food plan that they completely abstain from and treat that similar to alcohol.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And yeah, I can identify some of those alcoholic foods, whatever you might call them, in my own life that, yeah, I have struggles with that also. Good. So what I'd like to do now is ask you a question based on something else you shared, Asher. You said your definition of I can't even remember what it was, of love, of recovery, of what. Anyways, part of that was listening and not responding or giving advice. Man, I think I know it all. It is so hard to shut my mouth and just listen without giving any feedback, or even at the end going, "Do you want any feedback?" And even if they say no, are you sure you don't want any feedback? How do you get patient with that and just be willing to sit with somebody without giving feedback?
As you said, it's really, really hard. So the first thing is, most of us, when someone starts speaking, we're immediately thinking of the response, right? Immediately. So we haven't even listened for 10 seconds. So the first thing I remind myself is I don't have to respond. I just have to listen. So my response is irrelevant. Now, there's a real good reason why we think of the response. We're thinking of the response because we want to protect our stance, our belief, and because if we have to change our belief, it's very scary, right? It's unsafe. So remind yourself you're safe. You're fine. You don't have to change your mind. You don't have to change your belief. Just listen. And that's number one. So that's what I say. And just listen and just listen and just listen. And then ultimately, at the end of it, I remind myself, if they want feedback, they're going to ask me for it. Right. And if I don't offer feedback, all I've just told them is you're valuable, you're worthy, and I care about you because I spent the time listening to you.
Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform. And I still, at the end, if I don't say something, I'm like, how do I, hang up the phone or whatever without saying you're valuable, you're worthy, whatever. Hey, do you want any feedback? How do you close out that conversation if it's a phone call or if it's a face-to-face without just going an awkward turn away and walk away type thing?
How about just say thank you? That was incredible. Thank you for trusting me to share that with me. All right. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. I learned a lot.
It's too simple, man. I love that. Thank you for keeping it simple because my complex brain is just chasing that around like a squirrel, like a dog chasing a squirrel. All right. Another phrase you said, Asher, that I just loved, and I've never heard it put this way before. We are the only ones who I punch myself in the face because someone else punched me in the face. I'm beating myself in these, whether it be substances, whether it be behaviors and practices, because somebody else harmed me. I'm going to continue harming myself. Dive deeper into that if you wouldn't mind. Tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on that.
Well, think about it, right? You got hurt. Your parents hurt you. You got abused. You got shamed. Whatever happened, any of your pain, and what do you go do? You drink yourself into oblivion, right? You take drugs that then lead you to steal for the drugs or lead you to behave in ways that are not congruent with your soul, right? Most people that were recipients of violence become givers of violence because that's what they're familiar with, right? You behave in the way that hurt you because you haven't changed it. You don't act differently. So, right, we're the only population, right? This is it. You got hit. It's ouch. Okay, so if it's ouch, go get a Band-Aid. If it's ouch, go do physical therapy so your arm doesn't hurt anymore. Right? Don't you don't pour alcohol on the wound. That makes it hurt more. Right? Yet that's what's familiar to us. And if we don't change it completely, that's what we're going to do. So we're the only population, right? A species. Animals don't do this. Okay? Animals in the wild, okay, don't bite themselves on their arm when they got bitten by another animal, right? They protect themselves. They go and they recover. We as humans, we got hurt. Ouch. Okay, now let's hurt ourselves or hurt somebody else, right? Ouch. Let's make another ouch. How does 2 ouches make a non-ouch?
Yeah, these are great thoughts, and I'm really digging this. Thank you so much. The next thought I have here from your share, Asher, is, you talked about, in fact, I'd like you to remind us of the definition of, I think it's unconditional love. I can't remember. Being there for someone was something. Talk to us about that definition and what it's for again.
Right. So I'm not saying that unconditional love is what it's all about, right? So, right, we all have conditions, even right. Even if we serve God unconditionally, we want His reward. We want to look good in His or her or their eyes. When we're kind to our spouses, we expect something in return, our children, our families. So unconditional love has to be something that I give and receive. And when I'm of service to somebody else, right? When I'm literally what we just said, listening or showing up for somebody without any expectation of return, zero expectation of return. So I'm not looking for any reward whatsoever, accolades, etc. I feel like $1 billion when I finish that. I feel amazing. And you feel amazing, which to me is unconditional love. That's pure love. It's only pure because I'm giving to you, I'm receiving, and that unity is what it's all about. And then I encourage people to do with people that they disagree with, they're not aligned with, they hate, right? They hate because they've never met them, but they hate them because of their religion or their whatever stupid reason you hate somebody that you've never met or know or right, it was never done anything to you.
Yeah, and that's Dodger fans to me. So if somebody's a Dodger fan, I hate them. No, no, but that's good. I love that. You talked about. I mean, you grew up in a religious household. You are a rabbi. There's some religiosity in there somewhere. But you talked about how it wasn't until you were in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous that you had a spiritual experience. You felt the spiritual nature of things. Talk to us now about your religious practice, I guess, versus spirituality. What's your understanding of the two, and how are they different? How do they come together?
One of the greatest lines I heard in the rooms were religion are for those that are afraid of hell, and spirituality are for those that have been there. So, um, religion is very important to me, and Judaism for me is beautiful, and it comes with a lot of really beautiful ideals and ethics and morals. What it also comes with is people, and right, the people mess it up, and that comes with gossip, and that comes with all this other stuff that. And initially, I would throw the baby out with the bathwater. Right, I hated all that stuff, so everything's got to be bad. And and again, today I've come up with my definition of how religion is good is as long as religion is used to love God's children and treat each of God's children, all of us, kindly and lovingly, it's great. The second any religion is used to treat God's children without love and dignity, it's not a religion anymore. It was something made up by man. Okay, because at least my God would never want that. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't protect a loved one if somebody's coming. I don't believe in turning the cheek. If somebody does, God bless them. But if someone's coming to beat my kid up, I promise you, I will defend them and I'll beat him up first. Okay, that's my belief. Uh, so, but in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, why did I say spirituality? Because I didn't have the rituals yet, but I just watching. Why is everyone here? Not because they believe God wanted them there, or their rabbi wanted them there, or whatever. There was no religious reason to be there. It was the spiritual reason to be there, to better myself, to be a better human, to find a different way to live. And that's, to me, was, whoa, holy cow. That's true spirituality.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right. So, is there anything else that you'd like to discuss, bring up, or share with us before we start this closing out process, Rabbi or Asher?
Again, if everybody can wake up tomorrow morning and say, I am lovable just because. I am worthy just because. I haven't had a drink yet today. I haven't done anything badly yet today. The second I woke up, I'm not a bad dude. I'm not a bad dudette. Okay. And if you can remind yourself, I messed up. I am not messed up. Now, I'm messed up. That means you got to clean your side of the street. You got to make an amends. It doesn't excuse cleaning it up. Yet on your way to cleaning it up, smile because you got a way to clean it up.
Beautiful. I'm ready to go out and clean some streets with a smile. Thank you for this amazing Rico 12 speaker meeting, Asher. It's been really uplifting, really insightful, and I really appreciate your time and your willingness to share with us. If anybody in the live audience or out there in the podcast world listening audience have any questions, would like to continue this conversation, consider joining our WhatsApp community. Send me an email at rico12pod@gmail.com. Asher, if somebody reaches out and wants to get in contact with you, are you okay if I forward their stuff to you or share your email address with them at that point?
Of course.
Perfect. So if you want to get in touch with Asher, send me an email at rico12pod@gmail.com. I'll get you in touch with Asher. If you haven't done so yet, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. It is a powerful way to help work step 12. Share this message with others out there who may need to hear this message, who may be beating themselves up over, shame. Let's get them out of shame. Next Friday, we're going to hear from another first-time Rico 12 speaker, Jacqueline S., and I look forward to hearing her share, which she entitled The Spiritual Malady, a Cunning, Baffling, and Powerful Disease. So stay updated in WhatsApp, on our email list, and I look forward to seeing y'all back next week. Now, let's wrap up with a prayer that Asher's going to send us out with. Recovery prayer, prayer from the heart, whatever you want for this, Asher.
Hold on. God, grant me the serenity, or grant us the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Amen, amen. Thank you so much, Asher. Remember, everybody, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back, and when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
There was a man put his hand by the side of his mouth, and he wanted to scream, but the sound never came out. So he reached for the bottle to wash the pain away, 'cause what he wanted so badly was to live a different way. And all of his problems and all of his pain filled up the puddle and rose with the rain. His ship kept on sinking to the bottom of the lake. For certain that he was just a fake, just a fake. Was a man put his hand by the side of his mouth, and he wanted to share, but only lies ever came out. So he reached for the needle to numb the pain inside, and the truth that he yearned for shriveled up and died. And all of his problems and all of his sight of his mouth as he read from the book. Only truth spilled out. So he reached for a power to help him through the night. 'Cause what lives in the darkness dies in the night. Yeah, what lives in the darkness dies in